Якби в мене зараз була можливість звернутися до Організації Об'єднаних Націй, я сказав би, розблокуйте Чорноморські порти, розблокуйте Одесу.
Every summer, swathes of Ukraine are transformed into rolling fields of grain and sunflowers. But this year, the peaceful hush is deceptive. This is the east of the country, and the front line is just a few kilometres away. Well, in the last 30 seconds, as we were talking to a farmer here in the Donbass region in his wheat field, there was actually some incoming shelling just behind me to the left. He'd been saying that they regularly hear or see shelling, either incoming or outgoing fire from the Ukrainian military as the Russian forces are pressing in advance on the whole of the Donetsk region. He said it's just one of the many problems they're facing here as they're about to prepare for their harvest.
Особенно вечерами, когда вот давление по это самое дуже слышно, эти взрывы полностью, и ракеты летают, и снаряды, все летает. Ну.
As we continue talking, the Ukrainian military fires back.
That's outgoing.
The encroaching front line worries thousands of Ukrainian farmers like Vadim. Because of the war, he hasn't been able to sell his harvest from the previous years, but he cannot store it properly as local grain silos are regularly shelled. Even if he can harvest now, he's not sure if he can sell the grain, which means he cannot sow for 2023. This, he says, will be a problem for the entire world.
Украина есть это самая житница всего света, всего мира. И мы свою пшеницу продавали везде, везде наши, по всем странам это самое. А теперь, если мы не можем ее продать, ну как люди будут кушать этот хлеб? Хлеба просто будет дефицит, и люди будут голодать всего мира. Так что приезжайте, хай берут. И мы будем всем отпускать, всем рады будем, чтобы...
In Dnipro region, where the harvest has just begun, missile fire also interrupts our interview. There, Alexander, another farmer, echoes Vadim's fears. He says the war has driven up costs of fuel, fertilizers and transport so high, farmers can only sell their grain for half the amount it costs to produce.
І це буде дуже велика проблема не тільки для українських фермерів. Під загрозою посівна врожаю 2023 року. І ми, як фермери, допомагаємо всім, чим можете. У кожного свій фронт. У них свій фронт, їхній фронт захищати народ України. Наш фронт тут, на полі. Ми захищаємо продовольчу безпеку нашої країни, і не тільки нашої країни, а продовольчу безпеку всього світу. Якби в мене зараз була можливість звернутися до Організації Об'єднаних Націй, я сказав би, розблокуйте Чорноморські порти, розблокуйте Одесу, і врятуйте українських фермерів, і врятуйте весь світ.
The situation is so critical. Ukrainian and UN officials have warned that Russia's war in Ukraine that has helped push up surging wheat prices and worldwide food shortages could unleash an unprecedented wave of hunger and destitution. In fact, the FAO has estimated if no solutions are found, this war could see an additional 47 million people become acutely food insecure this year alone. The Ukrainian Agricultural Ministry says this could subsequently trigger mass migration and even other conflicts. It's all because of Ukraine's unique position in the global food market.
We were one of the five biggest exporters of grains to the world market, and we fed in one or other way about 400 million people in the world. In particular in Middle East and North Africa. In these countries, people spend more than 50% of their family budget for food. And because of lack of Ukrainian grains in world market, we can see that world prices increased. We have also inflation.
Ukraine cannot continue to be the breadbasket of the world because so much has been destroyed by Putin's invasion. Ukrainian officials estimate it has cost the country's agricultural sector tens of billions of dollars in damages. They also believe a quarter of Ukraine's agricultural land is now unusable because the fields are under Russian occupation, are mined, or are located along the many front lines. On top of that are export problems. Ukraine exports 95% of its grain and vegetable oil by its seaports. Russia has blockaded much of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Together with the Ukrainian defensive mining of the waters around its coastline, that means up until very recently, none of Ukraine's ports have been operational. And so exports of grain and oil have tanked from 6 million tonnes a month to just over 3 million in total since Russia first invaded in February. In the last few weeks, though, there has been a tentative breakthrough.
The United Nations is optimistic the talks in Istanbul could lead to a deal on food exports.
Today, there is a beacon on the Black Sea.
The deal got off to a bumpy start.
The Ukrainian port city of Odessa has been hit by a missile attack, raising doubts about an agreement reached just 24 hours ago to resume grain exports.
Finally, on the 1st of August, the first ship holding some 26,000 tonnes of corn left a Ukrainian port.
And the hope is that it will be the first of many in a route which will allow vessels in and out of what is still an active war zone.
Getting produce out of the country is just one part of the nightmare. An export agreement cannot reverse the damage to crops, agricultural lands, equipment, and transit routes within the country. Lubov's farm in the war-ravaged region of Kharkiv is a testament to that. She survived 1 month of Russian occupation, which was marked by murder, rape, and pillaging. She says drunk soldiers took potshots at her vehicles and her animals, many of which are also lame from artillery shrapnel and landmines. In one particularly disturbing episode, she says retreating Russian soldiers bombed her grain store, destroying 50 tons of wheat, and then deliberately set fire to the main pen holding 140 of her livestock. Half of them burned to death. The screams, she says, still haunt her.
Да, з цих 140, навірно, заживо згоріло голов 70, половину. А потім ми розбили, вони ж кинули огнемет прямо при виході. У нас один виход з сарая, я вам покажу. Ми не могли туди зайти. Половину сарая згоріло, а голов 70 ми витягнули їх, розбили, трактором розбили сарай. Тут стріляють, тут зривається, а ми всі кинулися, чоловік розбив пів сарая. Коли я вийшла, я в штопорі була, коли я вийшла, побачила, що все горить, і сіно було зверху на цьому, і падає, і воно все кричить, я закрила отак вуха, і кричала не своїм голосом, що на другий день, коли я вивезла гуманітарку, то люди кажуть, так жінка кричала, що на всю рогань, говорю, то я з ума сходила вже.
This warehouse is just a torched shell of what it formerly was, and this is the case for multiple other buildings on this farm. Lubov says actually that the total damages caused by the Russian occupation of this area will probably cost her as much as $500,000. She simply doesn't have that kind of money. She says she has no idea how they will start the harvest. Most of the equipment is destroyed. One of her farmhands nearly died after he drove a tractor over a Russian mine in her fields, and she's worried about the fighting returning here again, amid rumours Moscow will try to recapture these areas.
І от теж готуємося до життя, готуємося якби жити, а не дай Бог загориться, а скільки труда вложено, в нас же ж все сіно теж згоріло. А це, надіємося на лучше, а там подивимося, що воно буде. Ось витягували сюди.
At least, though, Lubov can access her lands. Harv East, one of the largest agrarian holdings in the east of Ukraine, says it has lost 70% of its lands. 90,000 hectares of fields have been swallowed up in front lines and now occupied territory. Tetiana, the commercial director of the company, estimates the losses and damages will cost them over $100 million.
We lost our equipment, tractors, combiners, cars. We lost our storages. One silos was destroyed, and we don't know how many losses we will have totally, because when we want to calculate it, we need first of all the war have to be stopped. But totally we have 10,000 in the mining, and now we have 2,000 left, and we need to do it. Hope we will finish in autumn, but I don't know. I don't think that it could be.
And this is why the Agricultural Ministry says the only true solution is an end to the war.
What we know and what we have to do is to defeat Russian army in Ukraine, because that's the only reason of this world food crisis and internal crisis in Ukraine.
Even if the export crisis is resolved, this is the daily reality for so many Ukrainians. And that's the resounding message from everyone that I've spoken to. Unless the war ends, unless peace comes where they can properly rebuild, they're going to have to live this nightmare.